Breaking developments are unfolding in the Middle East tonight, following reports confirmed by senior Israeli officials that Iran's supreme leader has been killed in a series of coordinated Israeli airstrikes. The strikes reportedly targeted his compound earlier in the day as part of a broader and highly strategic military campaign. According to Israeli sources, this was not a limited operation. Officials describe it as one of the largest air offensives ever carried out by Israel against a single nation. Nearly 200 fighter jets were deployed, striking approximately 500 targets across Iran. Hundreds of munitions were released, aimed at leadership facilities, military infrastructure, and missile systems. Israeli leadership has indicated that the primary objective was twofold: dismantle command structures and reduce Iran's capacity to launch ballistic missile attacks. Throughout the day, warning sirens sounded across Israel, as incoming missile fire forced millions of civilians into shelters. While Israel focused on neutralizing strategic targets, Iran responded with strikes toward populated areas, escalating tensions across the region. The reported death of a supreme leader represents a dramatic shift. Unlike ceremonial figures in some governments, Iran's supreme leader holds ultimate authority over military strategy, nuclear policy, and regional alliances. His influence extended deeply into decisions involving ballistic missile expansion and support for proxy groups throughout the Middle East. Behind the scenes, diplomatic efforts had reportedly been ongoing for months. US officials had attempted negotiations aimed primarily at curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions. While other contentious issues, including missile programs and regional proxy support, were part of broader discussions, nuclear containment remained the central focus. However, talks failed to produce an agreement. Now, the situation appears to have crossed into a new and unpredictable phase. Israeli officials suggest the campaign may continue for days, possibly weeks, depending on Iran's response. Meanwhile, the international community is watching closely, weighing the risks of broader escalation. This moment raises immediate questions. How will Iran respond to the loss of its most powerful leader? Will this destabilize the regime, or trigger an even stronger retaliation? And perhaps most critically, is this the beginning of a larger regional conflict, or a turning point that forces new negotiations? In Part 2, we examine what comes next, including Iran's military options, the role of regional proxy forces, and whether diplomacy still has a path forward. As the region absorbs the shock of this development, attention now turns to what comes next. The removal of Iran's supreme leader is not just symbolic. It strikes at the core of the country's governing structure and simply suffer unlike summer. However, Iran's political and military system was built with contingency plans in place. Reports suggest successors had already been identified in the event of conflict. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRG) is believed to have prepared replacement leadership for key command positions. This indicates that while the loss is significant, the system may continue functioning without immediate collapse. Beyond its borders, Iran's influence stretches through allied groups across the region. Hezbollah in Lebanon remains one of its most formidable partners, despite years of targeted operations aimed at weakening its capabilities. Intelligence assessments suggest that while Hezbollah's arsenal has been reduced, thousands of rockets may still be operational, many within range of Israeli cities. In Yemen and other areas, additional proxy groups could also play a role if escalation intensifies. Some have already signaled that attacks on Iranian leadership would compel them to act. This creates the possibility of a multi-front conflict, stretching beyond Israel and Iran alone. At the same time, US leadership has hinted that diplomatic options are not entirely off the table. In recent remarks, President Trump suggested that while military operations are ongoing, opportunities for negotiation could still emerge. The strategy has been described as peace through strength, implying that decisive action might create leverage for future talks. Yet Iran still retains significant military capabilities. Ballistic missiles and anti-ship weapons remain in its arsenal. While its nuclear program has faced setbacks and its regional networks have been pressured, it is far from powerless. The coming days will reveal whether Tehran chooses large-scale retaliation, limited response, or a strategic pause. History offers examples where sudden escalations led to brief but intense confrontations, followed by negotiated de-escalation. In previous conflicts, strikes were called off at critical moments when diplomatic channels reopened. The question now is whether that pattern repeats, or whether this conflict expands into something far more prolonged. Will regional powers intervene more directly? Will proxy forces ignite additional fronts? Or will back-channel diplomacy quietly shape the next chapter? What happens in the next 48 to 72 hours could determine the future balance of power in the Middle East, and the world will be watching every move. Stay with us, because this story is far from over.